here? It's okay? So I always tell people, because I do work in prisons with incarcerated people, that the only place, almost the only place I go where the PA system works perfectly at the first time is prisons. Okay? In the US, the PA system is the only thing in the prison that works well. Okay. So, good to be here with you. I'm having a little bit of flashback, figuratively, not really, because I first came to Tushita in 1976, when I think some of you were in your previous lives. Yeah, and so Tushita looked a lot different then, and I've come here, you know, from time to time over the years, and it keeps looking more and more different. So it's quite interesting how you have a conception of a place and you think that it's always going to be the same, yeah? And even though you know everything changes, and it changes moment by moment, but you expect it to be the same. And then you come, and the room that used to be here is no longer there, and that room used to be, the wall was out this way, and, you know, it looks quite different. So you have to adjust your mind to change. Okay, so I usually like to sit quietly with people before giving a talk, so that we can just shift gears for a while and calm our mind down. So if you just want to sit in meditation position for a moment. And then just feel your body sitting here on the cushion. And be present here where your body is. And then just check in with your body and see if there's tension anywhere. And if there is, then release it. And then bring your attention to the breath, simply letting the flow of the breath be normal and natural. Don't force it in any way. And be aware of the sensations as the breath enters, as it leaves. If there's a pause at the end of the inhalation or the end of the exhalation, be aware of that. And be aware of how your breath is changing every moment, never remaining the same. If you get distracted, just notice that. Don't make a story about it. Bring your focus back to the breath. Let's do that for a couple of minutes. Let the mind settle. let's take a moment and cultivate our motivation. But begin by asking yourself, why did you come here? What was your motivation in coming here? And whatever your initial motivation is, let's add to it and think that we're here so we can learn about how our mind works, so we can identify constructive attitudes and emotions, so we can enhance them, and identify destructive attitudes and emotions, so we can apply the antidotes to them. And let's do this not merely for our own happiness, but take a minute and really feel how you are one part of a very interdependent universe, filled with other living beings, all of whom want happiness and not suffering. And so as one part of that interdependent whole, know that as you change yourself and improve the state of your own mind, then automatically you'll contribute to the peace of the world. Automatically, especially if you have a compassion and motivation, you'll be able to influence others in a way that brings peace, brings happiness. And so aware of that ability that we have to do that, let's really make a determination to use it well, even to the point of attaining full awakening, so that we can be of the most effective benefit to all living beings. So let's make that our motivation for sharing the afternoon together. So, they asked me to speak on the foundation of Buddhist practice, which happens to be the title of this book. So this is an unpaid public announcement. I have the fortune to assist His Holiness the Dalai Lama in putting together a series of books about the path to awakening. And the whole series is called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion. The first volume was this one, Approaching the Buddhist Path. And then the second volume is The Foundation of Buddhist Path. So I'm gifting both of these to Tushita Library, so hopefully some of you can read it afterwards. And what we're trying to do in this is present the Dharma in a way that is suitable for the people who come to meet the Dharma nowadays. The regular Lam Rim books, the Stages of the Path, or Gradual Path to Awakening books, they were written for a Tibetan audience of people who are already Buddhist, who already believe in rebirth and different realms of existence and these kinds of things. And most of us come along and we don't know anything about that stuff. And we sit down and the first meditation in the Lam Rim is how to rely on a spiritual mentor. And we're going, what in the world is that? And then Precious Human Life, where we're told that we're so fortunate because we're not born in the hell realm. We're going, oh really? Is there a hell realm? So, the Gradual Path teachings are spectacular, but they really need a lot of background because they're written for a different audience than most of us. And so, especially in these first two volumes, trying to give some of that background and some of the foundation of Buddhist practice so that when you come in, you can have, a little bit of a broad understanding before you actually get involved. But it's still a challenge because there's so many new ideas when you come to the Dharma, isn't it? Yeah? And I think for me, one of the biggest new ideas, and the one that I'm still working on, this is many years later, I met the Dharma in 1975, so you can figure out how many years I've been trying to practice. I don't know if I've succeeded yet, but trying. One of the biggest ideas is that our happiness and our suffering come from inside our own mind. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but before I met the Dharma, and even now because of habit, it seems to me that happiness and suffering come from outside. Is that how you look at most of the world? Hello? Yeah? Okay. So if I can be in a pleasant place and see nice things and be with people that I like and have good food, you all know all the good places down in McLeod to go to, and you're going to be headed there the minute this course ends. And the nice smells, the nice tactile situations, a little bit of praise wouldn't hurt. How about some love and appreciation? Yeah, a good reputation. Yeah, we want all this stuff, don't we? And we see it as the source of happiness. Yeah? If I only had all of that, then I'd be happy. And so we go through our life trying to rearrange the environment and the people around us so that they conform to what we think will bring us happiness. Right? So from morning to night, we're in this relationship with the external world, pushing, pulling, grabbing, extending, whatever we need to do to get the things that we think will bring us happiness close to us and get far away from the things that will bring us unhappiness. And we spend our entire lifetime doing it. And do we ever wind up at a state of total fulfillment and happiness through this method? Have you found that yet? Yeah. So we always think, okay, you know, this boyfriend was great, but he had some problems. Yeah, so that relationship ended. I'll get a new boyfriend. Yeah. That boyfriend will fulfill all my needs. Yeah, all my needs. He will be perfect. Prince Charming will finally arrive on his white horse, you know, and whisk me away. And that lasts for, I don't know how long, a few months? Yeah, and then Prince Charming leaves his dirty socks on the floor and expects you to pick him up and wash him. Yeah, and Prince Charming gets mad at you because you were supposed to fulfill all of his needs, even though you never agreed to it. And you're not doing that, so he's mad at you. Of course, you get mad at him because he's supposed to fulfill all of your needs, even though he never agreed to that. And he isn't doing it, so you get mad. Right? Yeah? Have you all lived through this? Yeah, it's lots of fun, isn't it? Yeah, it's tons of fun. You know, the coming together. Oh, finally, I'm in love, I'm in bliss, this is wonderful. And that's a perfect setup for everything that comes afterwards, which is what comes afterwards. Yeah? It doesn't, you have this expectation of, you know, how it's all going to work out, and it never turns out that way, does it? Yeah, never. But we're like those rats, you know, the ones that keep pecking on the rice thing, you know, but the rice never comes except once every 1,000 times, but it still keeps pecking. So we're kind of like that, you know. The next thing I do, that's going to be the one. Oh, that didn't work out. The next one. Okay. So we're running around looking for something outside of ourselves to fill the hole inside of ourselves. And nothing external can do that. Yeah? It doesn't have the ability. Because really what we're looking for is to be at peace with ourselves and to have a meaningful life and to be able to relate to the world in a way so that we're not so up and down and up and down. Yeah? Would you say that's what you're looking for? Yeah? If you look, you know, at the end of the day. Because whatever we get externally, it's going to age and fall apart. You know, that really good-looking, fantastic person. Yeah, imagine what they're going to look like in 60 years. Yeah, what do you think? Yeah, are they sexy then? Okay, that chocolate cake that you're, you know, anticipating, if you leave it out for a while, then what does it happen? Yeah, it gets kind of soggy in this weather, or it gets dry in other weather. So, I'm not trying to be pessimistic and say, oh, you're never going to find happiness in this world, you know. That's not my message. My message is we want happiness, but we got to look in the right place for it. Yeah, and the right place is right here, because our mind, we're the only one that's always with us. And if we can have a satisfied mind, a purified mind, a mind that has realistic attitudes, a mind of compassion, then wherever we go, whoever we're with, we can be happy. But as long as we have a mind that is always discriminating, I like this and I want this, but I don't like that and I don't want this, then, when are we ever going to arrange the world to be what we want it to be? Yeah? I mean, everybody's been trying to do it and nobody's succeeded. So the whole idea is about changing what's in here. And so that's what gives us real power in our life, is our ability to transform our own mind. That's what really gives us the power to do something meaningful, something worthwhile. Because there's no way we can control the rest of the world. Yeah. We have lots of advice for the rest of the world, don't we? Do you have advice for people? Yeah? Some advice for your mom and dad? Yeah? Some advice for your brothers and sisters? Or for your kids? Or for your friends? Okay? If you're American, do you have some advice for President? And if you're Israeli, do you have some advice for... Yeah? Yeah, we have lots of advice, don't we? For everybody. Yeah? And we go and tell them what they should do so they can be better people, so that we can live happily. And they look at us like, well, I'm trying to do that. So we just need to fight a few wars, and that'll bring peace. Right? Yeah, fight a few wars. I grew up in the middle of the Vietnam War, and that's what they were telling us. Yeah, we got to go fight a war, and then we'll live in peace. And this was before I met Buddhism. I'm going, what? What? Never made any sense to me. It still doesn't. Yeah. So we want happiness, but we're barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. Okay? So then the question comes, well, if it's about changing our mind because the rest of the world is not going to follow our advice, what do we need to change in our own mind, and how do we go about changing that? But we really have to be very sure, and know from our own experience how our happiness and suffering comes from in here. So I want to give a couple of examples, just to bring that home to you. Have you ever gone in a place where you don't know anybody? Yeah. Maybe even some of you came to this course, you didn't know anybody. Yeah. Now, when you're about to go into a place where you don't know anybody, there's a few different kind of attitudes you can have. One could be, you're sitting there going, oh, I'm going into a place I don't know anybody. I bet all those people know each other. They're all friends. I don't know if I'm going to fit in. sure I'm going to fit in. Anyway, I don't know if I'm really going to like those people, if they're going to be my type. And they're all going to know each other. They're going to ignore me anyway. And I'm going to feel so uncomfortable and out of place. Do you sometimes feel that way? Or you can, before you go to that place, go, oh, I'm going in a place where I don't know anybody. There's all these people with so many different life experiences. Right. Yeah, they've seen things, they've done things, they think things that are really new to me, and I can learn so much for them, and it's going to be really interesting going there and talking to these people and getting to know them. So you could also think like that, couldn't you, before going into a place where you don't know anybody. Now, the first person, what kind, if they have that fear and that certitude, they're not going to fit in and everybody else is going to be friendly and ignore them. What's going to happen when they go into the room? Probably pretty much what they expected. How about the person who goes into the room saying, there's a lot of people and it's going to be very interesting to talk to them and get to know them? They're going to have a very different experience, aren't they? Yeah. So you can see just by our attitude how we create our experience of something. We've all woken up in some days in very bad moods. Nothing particular has happened, but you just wake up and you're like, meh. And have you noticed that on those days when you're just in a bad mood, so many obnoxious, rude people show up? Yeah. Have you ever noticed they all come that day? Yeah. On another day when you're in a good mood, they don't show up. Yeah. On a good mood, a good day, somebody could give you some feedback about some mistake you made. It doesn't bother you. But when you wake up in a bad mood, then somebody says hello in the wrong way, and you're just pissed off. Yeah? You ever notice that? Yeah? So these kinds of small things that we've all experienced, they show us that our happiness and our suffering come from inside here. Yeah? Have you ever been in a situation with a friend or somebody, and you've seen the situation in totally different ways? It's the same situation, and you think that you're seeing an objective reality out there, and you're assuming everybody sees it the way you are, but your friend is seeing it entirely differently? Ever happened to you? I'll tell you a story where it happened to me. Have any of you ever been at the Lukla airport in Nepal in 1973? Yeah. So the Lukla, if you're trekking from Kathmandu up to Namche Bazaar, Lukla is one of the little villages on the way, and there's an airport there. Well, a merely labeled airport. I don't know what it looks like nowadays because, this is a long time from 1973. But in 1973, okay, the Lukla airport, they had some small building back here. There was a grass field that goes off a way that ended in a cliff. That was the runway. And over here, there was like a small plane that was wrecked. Okay? That was the Lukla airport that I came about. I think they've probably modernized it since then. But so I was trekking back from with my friend, and we've stopped at Lukla. We were thinking maybe of taking a flight back. We wound up not. But we got there and the flights had gone for that day. And someone, one of the villagers came up and knowing that we were stuck there, offered us a place to stay the night. Yeah. And my friend was like very happy, you know, thinking, wow, this person is so kind, offering us a place to stay. And, you know, of course we'll pay him and things like that. But it gives us, you know, a roof. And I thought, oh, they know we're foreigners and we're stranded, and they're going to rip us off and overcharge us. Okay, this tells you something about the kind of person I was. And the kind of person my friend was. Okay, so same situation. My friend was full of gratitude. I was full of, you know, suspicion. Same situation. And both of us, of course, are thinking that we're seeing the situation which is an objective reality, independent of our own mind. It's not independent of our own mind. Our minds are creating this reality by how we look at the situation. Okay? So this is something that's very important to keep in mind. Yeah? And especially if you're unhappy, instead of grumbling about the world and being angry about the world, yeah, think, how can I look at the situation in a different way so that, you know, I'll feel better about it. And in a way, not where I'm whitewashing things and painting and ignoring things, but how can I see things more realistically without such a self-centered attitude that exaggerates how things relate to me? Okay? Because we have the power to change how we look at situations. So I live in a monastery. A monastery is a very interesting place to practice. People say sometimes, aren't you escaping from reality? You know, you go and live in a monastery, you're escaping the rest of the world. Yeah. You just want to hole up there and, you know, live happily ever after. And I tell these people, well, it's obvious you've never lived in a monastery. Because there is no way to escape the rest of the world. No way. Okay? No way. In a monastery, put it this way, 24/7 in a monastery, you're with the same people. And although, you know, we all have the same precepts, we have a similar worldview, in a monastery you wind up living with people you would never be friends with on the outside. Yeah, people who are so different from you that, you know, you just don't want to be with them. But there you are, you're living with them 24/7. And you can either freak out and be miserable, or you can work on your own mind and change it. You have two alternatives. Yeah, there's really not a third alternative. So it's a very good place for practice, because you're always confronted by yourself. You would think I would say you're always confronted by all these other people. No, you're confronted by yourself because we have projections on all these other people. We're not seeing them for who they are. We're painting pictures on everybody and then reacting to the pictures we paint on them. And the pictures we paint on other people are all done through the viewpoint of me, how people relate to me. Yeah? Somebody who is nice to me is a wonderful person. Yeah? Someone who is mean to me is a jerk, an idiot, and any other name you want to call them. Okay? Somebody who I don't know, I don't really care about. So people get put into 3 categories according to how they relate to me. The friends are in one category. I'm attached to them. I want to be with them. I don't want to be separated from them. The enemies, I'm using enemy as a loose term that includes people we don't like, people we feel threatened by, people who don't agree with our opinions. Those are the worst ones, aren't they? Oh, the people who don't agree with our opinions, especially regarding politics and religion. Yeah, so those people go in the enemy camp. Ugh. You know, they are worthy of being disparaged. They're worthy of my anger, of my contempt, and everything else. The strangers, they don't affect me one way or the other. So they're just kind of like things that I have to navigate around to get where I'm going. We don't see them as real people with feelings. And we think that we're seeing all these people as they really are. Our friends are really good people from their own side, independent of my mind, independent of me. The enemies are like just the worst. Again, independent of my mind, from their own side. They're just, But have you ever noticed that those relationships can change? Especially when you're traveling, yeah? When you're traveling in another country, this is where you can really see sometimes how the relationships change. Somebody that you meet when you're traveling, your first judgment, because you know how we judge people right away when we see them, is like, I don't want to get to know that person. I think I'll sit at another table in the restaurant. Okay? Yeah. So you have that. But then you're traveling on a train and that person's on the same train. And you become friends because you need somebody to look after your luggage and they need somebody to look after their luggage. Yeah? And so that person that you thought was just, all of a sudden you're traveling with them and you're becoming friends. You ever notice that? So we think we're seeing an objective reality, but we're not. And those relationships change. Somebody who we thought was going to be an enemy becomes a friend. Then, are any of you, how many friends do you have from first grade? You know, primary 1, when you were like 5 or 6 years old or 7 years old, went to school. You have many friends from that time? No. Yeah, maybe somebody has 1 or 2. Yeah. But most of us, we don't have friends. So all those playmates that we loved and we had such a good time with, they've all gone into the stranger category now. So it's quite interesting if you watch how friend, enemy, and stranger, those categories are always changing. And the feelings of attachment for the friends, aversion for the enemies, apathy for the strangers, those feelings are all changing all the time. In actual fact, none of those people are like fantastic, always going to be our friend. None of them are like, always going to be my enemy. And none of them are really always strangers if you include past and future lives. Okay? And in fact, everywhere we go, no matter what people look like on the outside, on the inside, we're all basically the same human being. We want to be happy, we don't want to suffer. Yeah? We judge each other so much based on outside appearance. And we miss out on the real person that's inside, which is exactly like the real person, quote, quote, real person, inside everybody, just a living being who wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. So some of them on the outside put out an air. You know, I love to use President Trump as an example. He's such a good example. Okay, maybe some of you haven't been reading the newspaper. You cannot keep up with the latest event in the three-ring circus known as the White House. But, you know, just the whole thing that's going on, it's just one sentient being who wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. That's all. Yeah, underneath all of that, yeah, it's just somebody who doesn't want to be miserable, who's trying to be happy, doesn't know the way to be happy, and creates a lot of trouble for himself and everybody else in the process. Yeah. When we can train our mind to look at everybody in that way, then it becomes possible to find a common point with everybody. And it becomes possible to connect in our heart with everybody. Because people may be fat and thin, and one nationality or another, young or old, well or sick, they may look 1,000 different ways. But inside, we're all basically the same. And if we train our mind to look into every person's eyes and look into their heart and see that, it's very freeing. Because then we know we don't need to pay too much attention to all the outside stuff. And we can start closing down our opinion factory. Okay? Do you have an opinion factory about other people? Yeah. And especially when you travel, sometimes the opinion factory gets really revved up. Yeah. And the opinion factory is it's such a tragedy in the making. Yeah. It's such a relief when we can let go of that judgmental, critical mind. You know? Because most of our opinion factory, we find a few people that we elevate, but most of our opinion factory is picking out faults. Even with people that we've never spoken to and don't know anything about. And that mind that criticizes, that complains, that judges other people, we're the ones who are made miserable by that mind. Not the people that we judge. We're the ones. When we become angry at somebody else, we're the ones who suffer most from our anger. Are you happy when you're angry? Yeah. Do you think anger is your friend? I have people say, oh, anger's my friend. It lets me know when something's wrong. Anger is going to protect me. If I'm not angry, people are going to take advantage of me. They're going to walk all over me. My anger is justified. Anyway, there's injustice, there's oppression, there's persecution. My anger is going to help me correct those injustices. My anger's right. Other people's anger is wrong, especially when it's directed to me. But my anger, my anger has good reasons behind it. Don't you think? My anger is going to make me happy. I'm going to put those people in their place. I'm going to tell them they can't treat me like that. Yeah. I care about this person very much, and they're not cooperating, and I'm going to speak awfully and rip them apart until they decide that they love me and they're going to do things my way. Yeah. Who do you talk the worst to? People you know or strangers? Who are you the meanest to? The people you care the most about or strangers? Would you ever say to a stranger what you say to the people you love? Why do we treat the people that we care the most about the worst? Yeah, why do we do that? Isn't that ridiculous? But we do it. We would never say to a stranger what we would say to a person that we care about. Yeah. But somehow when we're mad, when we're hurt, we feel like, I've got to get this across to them. That they're the cause of my unhappiness, and they have to change. When I'm mad, the world is very simple. I'm right, you're wrong. The solution is you change and do it my way. Yeah? World becomes very black and white, very simple. How does it work out? Yeah? When you say mean things to the people you care most about, how does that impact the relationship? Does that build trust? It doesn't, does it? Yeah, it destroys trust. And trust takes a long time to rebuild again. And yet it's so strange that we feel our anger is right and we feel like we have power when we're angry. And yet actually, our anger, we're terribly unhappy when we're angry. And I don't know about you, but I say and do things when I'm angry that I regret afterwards. Do you say and do things that you regret afterwards when you're angry? Yeah. So the purpose of all these things, I'm going through a lot of different topics, but the purpose with all of this is to show that our happiness and our suffering, the source is in our own heart and mind. Yeah? And that means that we can change it. if the source of our happiness and suffering were external, if we had to please an external divinity who was managing the universe, to have happiness, it would be very difficult to be happy. If we had to please everybody else around us in order to feel good about ourselves, it would be very difficult to feel good about ourselves. Because how in the world are we going to make everybody else happy? Yeah? So the real trick, seeing that the happiness and suffering comes from in here, means that as we learn the Buddha's teachings, and not just learn them, but as we practice them, as we train our mind, it's because it's retraining, it's reformatting the hard disk, so that we can see other living beings and see the world with a different attitude. Then we can have happiness ourselves. And then we can also do things that bring happiness to others. Yeah? So it depends on us. Yeah? And we each have that power. We each have that responsibility. Okay, so I've talked a bit. What I'd like to do now is open it up, and you may have comments or questions or whatever, but let's have a little back and forth. I won't guarantee the answers. That's why I said comments and questions. Okay, is there another mic that we can pass around for people who want to speak, or?
No, we don't have a wireless
mic. You don't have a wireless mic? Okay, then people have questions. Please speak loud. I have my hearing aids in, but speak loud, and then I'll repeat the question so they have it on the thing. Yes.
Is there a scale of, like when you do certain karmas, is there a scale of like, this is like really good, this is like really bad karma,
Okay. So is
between thoughts and actions and
yeah. So there's differences in different actions we do. Karma simply means action. Action of our body, speech, and mind. And so there's differences. Yeah. Some of the differences, one of the big differences is our motivation. What is our intention? What is moving us to say or do or think that? Yeah? So if we have a kind intention, then that usually brings good karma, meaning that it will result in happiness. If we have a rotten, self-centered intention, then it creates destructive karma that brings unhappiness to ourselves. Yeah, and then also depending on the strength of our intention, depending on how we do the action, depending on the other people involved in the action, there can be a lot of different factors. Okay. So karma is not cast in concrete. There's a lot of flexibility in karma. Yeah. Yes.
do we really see the things as they are, like after practicing? Because as you said,
Can you talk a little bit louder?
yeah, as you said that when we see things, we see the objective reality, like at the beginning, and then we don't really, like, we put pictures on people and then try to see something inside of us outside and interpret it in some way. But is there a point when you can actually realize that it is all something inside, and then you can see the people as they are, or like outside as it is?
Okay, so you're asking, do we start out seeing an objective reality and then paint pictures on that? And is that what you're asking? And then is enlightenment just taking that away so that we're seeing things as they are? It's a little bit more nuanced than that. We think that we're seeing an objective reality, but we aren't. So from the very get-go, there's some mistake in our perceptions, okay? Because when we look at things outside of, and also the way we look at ourselves, things appear and people appear as to be discrete entities with their own essence. That's how things appear. There's a real person, there's a real pillar, there's a real floor, independent of my mind, independent of everything else. That's how it appears to our senses. That appearance itself is mistaken, because in fact, things exist in relationship to the mind, and things exist dependent on other things. Yeah. For example, when we look at the floor, it just looks like, okay, here's a floor. Big deal. When you look at the floor, do you think that the floor had causes? Yeah? You think, oh, that's something that was once a tree and somebody cut down the tree and it went to the mill and then it got planed and then somebody brought it here and they measured it and they, nailed it in the floor and designed the whole thing. Do we look at the floor and see all the causes that went into this floor? Do we ever think about that? No. And yet, when we stop and think, wow, there's a lot of causes. So you see, just from the very beginning, how things are appearing. They appear to be independent entities when actually they are dependent entities. So just from the beginning, there's some mistake in how things appear. Then, because of that initial mistake, and because of our ignorance and our self-centeredness, then we start judging and evaluating everything. Oh, this looks pleasing. That looks yucky. Okay. And so we get into this pull and push relationship with everything around us. And that makes us do more actions. We speak, we engage, we do things. And of course, our actions precipitate a response from the environment. And our actions also plant impressions or seeds on our own mind stream. That help influence what we will experience in the future. Okay? So the path to awakening, there's two principal elements. One is developing the wisdom that can actually see how things exist. Yeah? And it's going to take us some time to develop that wisdom. But every small step we create going in that direction is very worth the effort. The other element is compassion, altruism, the feeling of that we're all alike inside, and that my suffering, my happiness are really no different than everybody else's. And so the willingness to work for the well-being of everybody instead of just our own. Which sounds liberating, and it also sounds scary, doesn't it? Liberating in the sense like, wow, wouldn't it be great to be able to greet everybody as a friend and feel connected with everybody and have the mind that wants to benefit everybody? Wouldn't that be wonderful to have? Instead of this complaining, judgmental thing? Yeah. But on the other hand, as we say, yeah, that would be so good to be connected with that, feel connected with everybody like that. But then one part of our mind goes, but what about me? What about me? I want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. Me. And then we get scared and we withdraw. Okay? So the process of developing compassion also, it's a slow process. It takes time. Yeah. We have to look at that little baby inside that says, me, I'm the most important one. Or I'm the most important one, depending on how we want to say it, but it comes to the same point. Yeah? So to learn to deal with that one and open our heart to other living beings.
Is there a place in Buddhism to art? Like, if all the effort is being detected, it's being for the compassion and the wisdom, is there a place for art?
Okay, so is there a place for art? Yes. Look. Look at the grounds, the beautiful flowers and the landscaping. Look at everything here. Yeah, art is an expression. Yeah. It can be an expression of wisdom and compassion. It can be an expression of a lot of other things. Yeah, but the important thing is our intention with art. Yeah, definitely there's a role. Yeah.
Do you think it is possible to be free of false delusion and have a compassionate heart and still live in a normal, modern Western life?
So you're asking, do I think it's possible to have a mind free of delusions or afflictions and live a normal Western life? Interesting question. What is a normal Western life? Okay? What is a normal Western life? Is there a normal Western life? What does it mean? Yeah, what's your definition of a normal Western life?
I'll try to be more specific.
What?
I'll try to be more specific.
Like,
I'll try
to be more specific. Yes, please.
Like, I have to think about it. Yeah, okay, I mean, okay, I think what I mean is without the religious aspect of Buddhism, or without like disconnecting from like the stereotypes of a modern family or a job or a social life.
Okay, so normal Western life in terms of having a career, having a family, having a social life.
Yeah, but still living your life with according to the principles of Buddhism.
Okay, so living your life according to Buddhist principles. I think that's possible, you know, in the sense of especially the ethical principles that the Buddha established, you know, to avoid the 10 non-virtues, practice the 10 virtues. Are you aware of those? Yeah? And so to do that, I think it can be a real guiding light in your life as you navigate career and family and everything else. I think it is definitely challenging to live an ethical life in contemporary society. Well, also in ancient society, no? Just because of the nature of societies, the nature of our mind, as long as we have afflictions in our mind, then those afflictions will color what we see, and then that sometimes makes it very difficult to keep good ethical conduct, to be a person with integrity. Some places I go to teach, people tell me that their bosses ask them to lie. Now, what do you do if you work in a place where your boss expects you to lie? Yeah? So to be courageous and say, no, I'm not going to do that, and your job is at risk when you have a family to support, that's challenging. On the other hand, if you just lie because your boss wants you to lie, sure, you have food on the table for your family, but how do you feel about yourself as a human being? Not so good. Okay? So there's definitely challenges, and I think you have to be very strong, in your principles and your values.
Yes, you spoke about that we hurt people, normal people that we are close to us and people we know.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more on why that happens?
Okay.
Mainly family members.
Yeah, especially family members, and would I explain more about why I think that happens, that we speak so awfully to the people we care about. There's a few reasons. One reason is we are very close to those people, so we have the idea in our mind that we don't need to act with common manners and common courtesy. We know those people so well. They see us when we wake up in the morning. We don't need to hide anything from them. So when I'm in a bad mood, I can just let it out. When I'm in a good mood, I can let that out because we know each other well. Kind of like, I don't need to treat people with regular manners because I know them so well. And I think that thought is a big mistake. Because I think especially in families, that's when we really need to use please and thank you a lot. Especially because we're so close to those people. There's so much tendency to take them for granted. And so we need to be especially careful. And so before if you're working a job and you're going home at night, before you go home, to stop outside the door and to center yourself and say, I'm going to go see the people that I care about the most. And I want to be kind to them because I care about them. And generate that motivation before you walk in the door. Or you're writing emails or texts or whatever to your family back home while you're here. To stop before and think, these are people who've been kind to me, who I care about. May I speak to them with that kindness and care. So I think that's one part of it. A second part is those are the people we tend to be the most attached to. Okay? And here what I mean by attachment is a mind that exaggerates the good quality of someone or something and then doesn't want to be separated from them. So our family brings us security. Our friends bring us security. These people are generally nice to us. So we exaggerate their importance in our life. We see only their good qualities. We don't see the whole rest of them. And then we cling to them because it brings us a feeling of security and stability in our lives. Yeah. But the thing about attachment is, the more we're attached to someone, the more upset we get when those people don't act the way we want them to act. Okay. The more attached I am to chocolate cake, the more upset I am when I can't get it. Or the more upset I am when it's soggy or too dry. Yeah? So the thing is, and some of you have been attending the class, the retreat here. I'm sure you talked a lot about attachment. But attachment, it has this kind of stickiness to it. Yeah? And then we have all sorts of expectations of how somebody's supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. And then, of course, reality never matches our expectations. So then we get upset. Yeah? So the more attached, the more upset. Yeah? So this does not mean, repeat, it does not mean that we just don't feel anything towards anybody. Okay, I'm not attached. Do whatever you want. I don't care about you. Yeah. I have total equanimity and detachment. No, it doesn't mean that. Who wants to be like that? Okay, so I'm not saying, make yourself like that emotionally. It's more, have a big mind. Have a big mind. These are sentient beings with afflictions, and so am I. So of course things aren't going to go as planned. Of course. Yeah. Oh, he's going to go first and then you. Okay.
We work on developing compassion, and then we die, and after we are reborn, our mind forgets our past life. Right? Why does the mind chooses to forget our past life?
Okay.
We should have remembered, so we would have worked more and developed it more.
Okay. So when we're reborn, we forget our past lives. And wouldn't it be nice to remember them so we can keep going? Well, why does our mind forget? Okay, do you remember where you put your glasses and your car keys? We can't remember where we put something earlier today or where we put something yesterday. Yeah, so of course we're not going to be able to remember our previous lives. But what does come with us from life to life, yeah, is a lot of the mental habits that we build up. So if we build up a mental habit of kindness, that habit, habitual energy, comes with us. If we develop a habit of anger, then that habit easily comes up in the next life. Okay? Because you can see when babies are born, babies have personalities, don't they? Yeah? People, babies are not blank slates. They come up with personalities already and habits. Yeah? So the thing is, the more we habituate our mind with constructive attitudes and constructive emotions, the more peaceful we are in this life, And then the more we put those seeds and establish those habits in our mind, so that in next life it becomes easier to generate them.
Do you think there is a thing like quality? And if there is, quality.
Quality.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And if there is, if it's objective or subjective?
Okay, so qualities of people or qualities of objects?
Qualities in life, in everything. Like you said before about the paintings, that they are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So is there like a quality, good painting and bad painting? Or
I think...
good actions and bad actions.
Okay.
And if there is, subjective or objective?
Okay. I think in terms of art, that's fairly subjective. You know, what we find beautiful, what we find unappealing, I think that can be more subjective. Although there may be, in certain cultures, habitual ways people's minds think that make them like certain kind of art and not other art. In terms of values and karma, you know, constructive actions and destructive actions, I think that those are determined. Okay, why we say something is constructive karma, why we say something is destructive karma, is because of the result it brings in the long term. And so the Buddha, who had special powers to see things, saw that when sentient beings experienced happiness, he looked back and saw the kind of actions they did in previous lives or whatever that ripened in that happiness, and those he called positive actions. When he saw sentient beings suffering, then he looked at the actions, the karmic actions that brought that around, and those were called destructive actions. So things are not constructive or destructive independent of everything else, but they're dependent on the kinds of results they bring in the long term. Since we don't have the ability to always see the long-term results, it behooves us to listen to the guidance of somebody like the Buddha, who can give us some direction about what causes create happiness and what causes create misery. Does that make some sense to you? Think about it. Okay. Now the guys have been asking all the questions. Where are the women? Okay, yeah.
You were speaking about the opinion factory.
Yeah.
I was very connected to this term, and I was wondering, how do you communicate it in times of conflict, whether it's for different people or social groups, and because you were saying it in the relation that in the end, if we see that we all want happiness and avoid suffering, we will shut down this factory. So I was wondering, how would you communicate it to people to have this practice of shutting down this factory?
Okay.
Specifically also to people that don't practice.
Yeah. Okay, so how can we make them shut down their opinion factory?
I meant actually for the both.
For both.
To bring about reconciliation.
Okay, well, we can't make anybody do anything, okay? Let's start with ourselves and work with our own opinion factory, okay? And so just to be aware of how we generate opinions about everybody and everything, and just to be aware of that and ask ourselves, is that true? Is that true? Okay? So, so two people walked out of the talk before. Maybe my opinion factory goes, Oh, they didn't like the talk. They thought I was an awful speaker. Maybe I'm an awful speaker. Oh, they're going to go down to MacLeod Ganj and tell everybody what a horrible talk I gave. Okay? Or maybe I think, oh, those people, they are so rude. They got up in the middle of my talk, my excellent talk, and they left. Oh. Or maybe they had to go to the bathroom. You know? So, you know, to watch those opinions, those judgments, do I know why those two people left? Yeah. I have no idea why they left. No idea. Why do I need to project a motivation on them that has to do with me and the quality of my talk? You know, it has nothing to do with, I mean, they left. All they did was open the door and leave and close the door. And that's, you know, in our contract of human rights, that's, you can do that. Yeah? Why do I have to have an opinion about it when I have absolutely no idea? Yeah? Better drop it. Drop it. Okay? So things like that. Now, in situations of conflict, you were asking about, when we're dealing with people and, you know, they have their opinions. Yeah. You're sitting across from a Republican, a Trump supporter. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is the example from my country. I know it doesn't apply to all of your countries, but bear with me. I think there's maybe a handful of Americans here. Huh? Yeah. So, you know, I mean, pick your favorite politician. in your own country, you know, and then think of somebody who supports that person. Oh, how can they think like that? How can they want that? You know, they're so bigoted, they're so racist. Don't they, you know, why are they doing this to the country? And, you know, you don't know anything about them. All you know is who they voted for. And instantly, there's this whole thing you put on their heads. Whereas, if you meet them in the street and you don't know they're a Trump supporter or a Netanyahu supporter or whoever you want to say support, then you can have a good relationship with them, can't you? If you don't know, you know, then you can talk to them. You're two human beings. Then as soon as they mention who they vote for, you know, then you just have to look beyond that. You know, stick with the human qualities that you shared and see, okay, we may have different political views. That's okay. We see things in different ways. We may have different things that are important to us. Yeah? But can we still relate on a human level to each other? And try and build it on that human level. They say, you know, people who have who deal with hostage situations, they say that the best thing to do is to talk to the person who's holding you hostage and establish some kind of human contact with that person. Yeah? They're wearing a t-shirt for a special sports team. And you say, oh, you're the followers of so-and-so. Oh, yeah, what did you think about that game or whatever it was? You know, you make some kind of contact, and then that makes everything much easier. But if we go into a conversation with people who have different views with us, with the idea of how can I make them change their views because they're wrong, you're not going to have a very happy conversation. I'd like to recommend Marshall Rosenberg did a lot of work on what is called NVC, nonviolent communication. And he talks a lot about this, how to communicate with people so that we don't get locked into our feelings and needs, but can open our heart and connect with them on a human level and listen to what they're really trying to say without trying to change them. Okay?
By the concept of emptiness that I'm getting to know through this initial course. But I'm also a bit struggling with understanding exactly at the beginning emptiness from what, you know. Because then I realized I understand with my mind, not still with my experience, but I understand with my mind that it's emptiness by all our ignorance that is actually making us believing that the reality is in a certain way, so as independent arising, but eventually everything is conditioned by cause and conditions, and it's actually dependent from something else. But still, I believe, maybe culturally as well, from my cultural imprint, that there is another level, which is another type of self, which is what we yesterday in the video, The Nature of Mind that we watched, was acknowledged to be the observer, you know, this pure consciousness, that is actually the one probably capable of compassion. So we have this ego-driven self, but we also have the self that is actually the source of pure peace, inner peace, and it is probably what helps us getting to the enlightenment, I guess. So my question is, according to my culture, I would actually label it my soul, or actually, maybe in Indian culture, is the Atma, this energy that actually is permanent, and it's independent, and it's one, and it cannot be split in a way. So the question is there this duality that it's actually, how do I have to see emptiness if I think that there is a self that is actually able to get to enlightenment?
Okay.
And that would lead me to
So you're asking how to harmonize the idea of the emptiness of inherent existence with a permanent self. Yeah. How do you harmonize it? You can't. You can't. Yeah. You can't. Because emptiness is the absence of things having some kind of reified, fixed, concrete essence. And the idea of a self with a capital S, or a soul, is the belief that there is a person with a concrete, permanent essence. So they're two diametrically opposed ideas.
But how then which part of myself will get to the enlightenment then?
From a Buddhist viewpoint, your soul doesn't exist, so your soul's not going to get enlightened. Okay? Something that doesn't exist can't become a Buddha. Okay? What gets enlightened? What we call the mere I.
And what is that?
Well, that's the problem with the mere eye. Well, it's not the problem with the mere eye, it's the problem with our mind. Is we want to find something that is really me. We want to find that thing, you know, because we're always going around, who am I, who am I? You know, and why do you go traveling the world? I want to find out who I am. Okay? And Buddhism is all about finding out who you aren't. Okay? Because we have so many ideas of who we are, and they're all things that we made up. Yeah? So the idea of, you know, there's some fixed thing, the essence of me that is always there and never changing. It's a very comforting idea, isn't it? It's very comforting. There's a permanent soul that's me. I will never cease. I will never go out of existence. There's always me that can never change. Well, if you believe that there's that, find it. What is it? Search for it and see if you can find it. And then tell me what you find. Okay?
Maybe 100 other incarnations.
Yeah, but this is, you know, this is how we need to approach the Dharma, with curiosity, with investigation, with analysis. I feel like this kind of thing exists. Well, feeling like it exists isn't good enough. I have to know what it is. So, what, you know, if I think that exists, let's find it and see, you know. If I think there's Santa Claus, then I need to find Santa Claus and see, you know, is there really Santa Claus? Instead of just going, well, you know, it's a nice idea and makes me feel good. Yeah, you can't live your life on that. Or if you think there's, in America, we have this expression, a boogeyman. You know, what's a boogeyman? It's like somebody who's there lurking behind the pillars who's going to get, or when you're a kid, you know, somebody's sleeping under your bed. Yeah, who's going to get you? Yeah. Is there such a thing as a boogeyman under your bed who's going to, you know, get you when you're asleep as a kid? No, but you've got to go and look under the bed and find out, oh, I thought there was a boogeyman. There's no boogeyman under there. Oh, I don't need to be afraid. Oh, I thought there was Santa Claus. I've looked at the North Pole and everywhere else. I can't find him. You know, there's no Santa Claus. Okay, let's drop that. Yeah. So we have to search and investigate. Okay? It's not quick, cheap, and easy. Okay, yeah.
I have a question about the Buddhism traditional.
Uh-huh.
According to the Buddhism, the source of your happiness and your suffer is in your mind, not in anything external. So why all the rituals and ceremony through Buddha, which is an external thing, why not all the time just do meditate and practice your inner mind?
Excellent question. So if it's all about transforming your mind, why do we have so much stuff on the outside? Okay? Because it's a skillful means of getting us to look inside. Yeah, because we so habitually look outside, we use that habitual energy, but the rituals and so forth are created in such a way that if you know how to follow them and how to meditate correctly on them, they come back inside and help you look inside. Yeah. So, did you do the meditation on the Buddha? Visualizing the Buddha?
Shakyamuni Buddha, we use
Yeah.
it in purification.
Okay, good. So you visualize the Buddha in front, you do the 7 limb prayer, and you take refuge, and then you do, some confession, some regret for negativities, and then light comes from the Buddha into you, purifying yourself, and you chant the mantra. And then the Buddha comes on top of your head and dissolves into you. Okay? So it's a psychological method. We're taking the Buddha that we can become and we project it outward. Yeah? And we see that there has been many Buddhas in the world. So the Buddha that we can become is somehow related to the Buddha who lived in India, several centuries ago. And we relate to that Buddha, but at the end, that Buddha dissolves back into our own mind. Okay? So it's a very interesting psychological method. Yeah. And it definitely influences how you feel, doesn't it? You had a question in the back? Yeah.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
If you remember, I used to come to the Abbey.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, you talked about opinion factories, and I thought, well, since, I'm not enlightened, whatever comes out of my mouth could be an opinion, right?
A good deal of what comes out of our mouths is opinions. Not everything.
Not everything, okay. So I'm not, you talked about nonviolent communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, well, because when you feel strongly about something, and you speak, and whatever comes out, well, it's likely to be an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So nonviolent communication can help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think because you had talked about opinion factories, and when you talked about nonviolent communication, I think you answered my question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you speak without spouting an opinion?
How do you speak without spouting opinions? Well, one thing that's good to do is just to state the bare facts as you saw them. Okay? Especially in situations of conflict. Okay, let me give you an example. One of our friends at the Abbey, her son was getting married and to a woman from a different culture, and they were having a party, an engagement party or something for the couple at her family's house. And so my friend was going there. It was in a different culture, in a different city. She didn't know her son's fiancé very well. Yeah. And she came in the room, in the house, in the family's house, and she saw her son's fiancé, and she kind of expected that the woman would get up and come and greet her and take her in and introduce her to the family members and things like that. But instead, her son's fiancé she was talking to somebody and kept on talking and, kind of didn't greet her or anything. And my friend was furious. It's like, my son's gonna marry this woman. She is so rude. She is so inconsiderate. She is this, she is that. So full of opinions about her. And yet, when she sat down and was asked exactly, just describe exactly what happened. It was, I walked into the room, I saw my son's fiancée talking to somebody. She continued to talk to that person. That was the raw data of the situation. And my friend realized all her opinions about the qualities of her future daughter-in-law, all those judgments, all that stuff was all coming from her. Yeah. And so just describing the bare thing of the situation really helped her to settle. Okay? Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have two simple questions.
You have to talk louder.
I wonder, what do you mean by mind? First question. And the second, what exactly attachment means?
Okay. So what do we mean by mind? The definition of mind is that which is clear and cognizant. Okay, that which is clear and cognizant. So mind does not mean brain. Yeah. And the word that we translate commonly as mind can also be translated as heart, as in somebody has a kind heart. Okay, so mind is clear, meaning it lacks form, it is not material in nature, and it is clear in the sense that, like a mirror, it can reflect objects. And the second quality is cognizant, meaning it can know objects. So that's the definition of mind, okay? There's many, many different types of mind. Then the attachment, the way I'm using that word, I'm not speaking about it as the attachment that a child develops for their mother, as a newborn develops for their parents, that makes them feel secure. Not that kind of attachment. Here, attachment is an attitude that's exaggerated the good qualities of someone or something, and then clings to it. Okay? So it's a mistaken, it's a distorted state of mind. Okay? Now, we have to end. And I know there's about at least a dozen of you who have your hands up with questions. So I'm sorry that I'm not able to answer all the questions. I can refer you to my website and the books and everything else. And there's also wonderful teachers here in Dharamsala. You are so lucky to be here, And there's Tushitas having more courses, and there's the library, and there's lots of things around. So really take advantage of it. Okay? So let's just sit for a moment. I call this digestion meditation. So just think for a moment, about some of the things that you heard that you can take away with you. Maybe something about compassion, something about wisdom. let's rejoice at the constructive karma, the merit, the positive energy that we created as a group and as individuals. So rejoice at what you did. Rejoice at what everybody here did. And then let's take all that good energy, that positive potential, and send it out into the universe. You can even think that it's like a shining light coming from the center of your chest, going out and touching all the living beings, bringing peace and fulfillment to their minds. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Oh, and so offering these 2 books to the library, and then offering, we did some translations of some Vinaya materials. Vinaya is the monastic discipline, so we wanted to offer 4 of the booklets that we prepared that we think might be interesting for the monks and nuns. Okay.
Thank you so much for making the time in your busy schedule to
Sure.
come, and I hope you're coming very, very soon.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. And
so
thank you for the great work you're doing here.
No worries, it's a big team,
Yeah.
all of us. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good. And so much thanks also to the whole staff here at Tushita who work very hard to make everything happen. Yeah.
Brochure